Dìdi is a coming-of-age comedy drama written and directed by Sean Wang in his directorial debut. Set in the final month of summer 2008, just before starting high school, a 13-year-old Taiwanese-American boy basically discovers his identity and learns a lot of things that his family could never really teach him, such as being a cameraman for a bunch of skaters, or learning how to flirt with his crush, and really explores the dynamic between him and his mom. So, right off the bat, the film is set in 2008, and so I really experienced sort of a culture shock because I was born in 2006. And growing up, I already had like access to a lot of different social media stuff. But here in 2008, the film is really the pinnacle of, or set in the background of the pinnacle of social media exposure. People are, really getting used to these types of platforms and messaging one another on these types of socials. And so it was a bit foreign back then, but obviously it's a lot more present nowadays. They use stuff like MySpace and AIM, I believe it was called, and of course Facebook, which I'm pretty sure was relatively new back then. But I mean, yeah, it was pretty cool. It was new to me, but it was really interesting to see how they brought that into the I don't know, to basically like the setting of this movie, which is very important. It's really integral to the story. It's about how social media has basically I don't know, just like it's the only platform for communicating with people, I guess. And because I mean the main character himself, this Taiwanese boy, Chris is his name, Chris Wang. He goes by Wang Wang by his friends. He's a bit antisocial. I must say he's a bit antisocial, but I think that's what makes the film so much more relatable. You get to see things from his perspective, how he talks to people, how he sometimes feels isolated from his friend groups. And even back at home, there's a bit of a dysfunctional thing going on with his family. At first, I thought he was living with like a single mom, but apparently his dad, he's off in Taiwan, and he's working in Taiwan right now. I don't know if it's like a business trip, but he's basically sending money over to the house. But he lives with his mom, and to make matters a bit more complicated, especially for his mom, his dad's mom is at home as well. It's a grandma, Nai, I believe is the correct terminology to call her. I believe that's Chinese or Taiwanese. But yeah, and you get to see some of that dynamic. She's incredibly nice to Chris and his sister, but pretty strict with the mom. And she's very demanding, often criticizes how she doesn't do enough for the family. And so I thought that part, even though it doesn't, relate to Chris specifically, I thought that was pretty, I don't know, pretty relatable. I don't know what it is with like Asian families, but for some reason, the mom doesn't have that good of a, no, I don't want to know, like it's a bit of a, like a meh dynamic with the husband's mom. I don't know, the mom and a mother-in-law, they've always have like an iffy dynamic from what I've experienced. So I thought that part was very relatable. By the way, it also has YouTube. I believe this film has YouTube. So you get to see YouTube in a new light. Obviously, this video is on YouTube. But it was obviously a lot different back then. What else? So another thing that this movie explores is sort of the racism, I guess. There's a lot of, and obviously that's very much permeating today. There's quite a bit of internalized racism that you see from some of the characters, in the sense that it is racism, but it's sort of unintentional. And I thought that was hugely important, Obviously, this movie, the topic of this movie, it's a coming-of-age dramedy. It's been done multiple times before. There's like quite a few like replications or renditions of it, if you want to call it, but it's never been done through the eyes of a Taiwanese boy. And so obviously, yeah, there's some internalized racism, some microaggressions would be, I guess, the correct way to call it. But I thought that was hugely important and sort of adds to like the surrounding theme or overarching theme of, trying to fit in, I won't spoil, but there is one instant where Chris, not just Chris, but a lot of his friends, they look they try to look really good in front of other people. They try to make themselves look really good, whether it's their crushes, whether it's an older group of people, you know. And so by trying to make themselves look good, and this is something I relate to as well, I mean, this movie is so relatable, they try to distance themselves from their own humor, from their own tastes, and from their own personality, and they try to mimic what basically it's sort of like the tastes of other people, just so that they can fit in and so that they can relate to them. And so this movie at the end of the day is really just being yourself and learning to love yourself and who you are, not trying to like leech off onto another persona. By the way, this movie is very, very funny. I remember I saw this trailer. I saw this trailer on YouTube, actually. I saw a preview of it, and I was like, this is a really cool film. And it just screams like indie film, like Sundance. It obviously makes sense that this film premiered at Sundance. It wasn't A24. I think it's a Focus Features film. But of course, it's like an indie project, but it is so well done, of course. And I believe it won the Grand Jury Prize Award for U.S. Dramatic at Sundance. Well deserved. But yeah, I mean, this movie is incredibly funny, very witty dialogue. I think that's what hooked me when I saw that preview on YouTube. It's just so smart, and the characters bounce off each other so well. Yeah, I mean, Sean Wang, incredible writer. I believe he also created a documentary before this film, literally last year, a documentary short, which was nominated at the Oscars. So yeah, I mean, this guy, he's definitely on the rise. Someone to really keep your eye out for. Another great thing about this film, the diverse representation. I think diversity has sometimes become like, oh, it's an obligation, you need to be diverse. I don't necessarily like think so. I feel like you could create a relatively great story without so much diversity. But I think with this film, and especially if you're going to explore the upbringing of someone who feels isolated from their peers, it's definitely important to like really showcase the cultural differences between everyone. And so, Chris, he has a Pakistani American friend. He has another Asian friend. There's he has a crush on a Wasian. So it's a lot of different cultures mixed into there, and it felt like a melting pot of so many wonderful people from so many wonderful backgrounds, and I thought that was very nice. Okay, so there's this one scene. So now my favorite scene of the film, because I think it's important to always talk about my favorite scene of a film. It would definitely be I don't know if you guys have seen Whiplash. It's very similar to the dinner scene in Whiplash in a sense. It's about the parents comparing their sons in front of them. Like literally in front of them. I'm pretty sure this is in the trailer, so I don't think that's a spoiler. But it's like, it's pure art in my opinion, and it is super relatable. It's all about comparisons, using your sons as a bragging right to your friends in front of them, You kind of use their achievements and their accolades as a way to like, I don't know, just to brag, I guess. And I found that to be super relatable. There's this one character who, he's like the role model for the Asian community. He plays badminton, very good at, in school, very smart, does taking SAT prep classes. But of course, Chris, on the other end of the spectrum, he skates and he films videos, he's on social media a lot. And so we see two ends of the spectrum, and because of that, we see comparisons being made, and it never feels good. And from Chris's perspective, you can see he just wants to get out of that place immediately. So I really very much like that scene. I'm really glad they had that in. In addition to that, the film also explores things from the mother's perspective. I mentioned that before. She had like a pretty rough relationship with her mother-in-law. And she's also, I won't spoil this, but she has like a hobby that she pursues, and it's a very nice hobby, in my opinion. And so I kind of wish, I know this is like a coming of age drama, and I think they made, obviously, the production team, they made the right choice by exploring things through, Dìdi or Chris's perspective. I I don't know. I think it would have been interesting. I shouldn't say I would have liked. I think it would be interesting if it was a dual narrative between switching off between Chris and his mom, because his mom leads a very interesting life, and her dialogue. I mean, the her dialogues are incredible. Her lines, it really makes you think about her life before she had Chris and his sister, and I would have really liked to see that maybe a bit more explored. Maybe it was like a dual narrative. We switch between the accounts. But then again, that defeats the whole purpose of a coming-of-age dramedy. So maybe, I don't know. Would have liked to see more of her. But, I mean, at the end of the day, I won't say what her hobby was, but, I mean, artist for the win, Artistry for the win. I love how this movie is very much a compliment to artists in the industry, whether it's all types of artists, whether it's, like, actors or, like, videographers, like cameramen, just people pursuing their passions. And I very much appreciate that, and how it really shows like you can find satisfaction without having to achieve this cookie cutter persona of getting good grades, of having to do everything that your parents, or like having to do everything that your parents expect of you. It's really, I mean, this movie at the end of the day is a boy trying to sort of stray away from the expectations from his family and from his, I don't want to get too racial, but it's like sort of his race as well, because, it's a stereotype, but it's also like a sort of a true stereotype that Asians, just like have a, I don't know, crazier studying work ethic than most other races. And I liked how that was sort of explored. But yeah, I mean, artists for the win. This movie, also, I mentioned before, it's about skating. Chris, not necessarily like wanting to become like the greatest skater, or maybe that's what he wants to do, but I'm pretty sure it was more about him just like visual editing. I think that's like what his passion was, and I really like that. This is obviously an autobiography, and you could definitely see Sean Wang definitely put a lot of his personality into this. It's about a kid who wants to get better at film editing. He wants to be better at camera work. And so it definitely had that. And in addition to the skating, this movie really reminded me of mid-90s. If you guys have seen that film, it's the Jonah Hill directed film. Also about a coming-of-age drama about a boy and a bunch of skaters. Other comparisons that could be made to this film is the movie 8th Grade, another great film directed by Bo Burnham. And I believe in an interview, Sean Wang said his main inspiration for creating this movie was Stand By Me, which I really liked, because Stand By Me, of course, is a great, he sort of said it was like the sort of like the hallmark for coming-of-age films, for young boyhood, in a sense. But of course, Stand By Me, is majority Caucasian, Caucasian kids. So I really like that he made his own interpretation of Stand By Me through the eyes of a tiny Vietnamese boy, through the lens of his own childhood. And I'm really glad that he really put his heart and soul into this autobiography, because it's really nice. And I like when people put their personality into things. I believe it was Martin Scorsese that said the most personal is the most creative. Another thing I liked, the siblings. I didn't really talk too much on the sister. She's played by a wonderful actress. The acting all around is just phenomenal. But the chemistry between the two of them, the sister and Chris, I'm forgetting the sister's name, but they have great chemistry. Both as siblings and obviously as the actors as well. They do a fantastic job. There's another scene where they just go back and forth with the dialogue, and it is mesmerizing. They are so good at it. And I think a great theme from this film, and it's, if you guys check out my letterboxd, it's related to what I said. It's basically that, Mama's boys will always be undefeated, because this movie is really talking about, and I think we've all experienced this, young boys, or like 13-year-old boys, we're always kind of just rude to our moms. And, that being rude to your mom is very universal, whether it's intentional or unintentional. We have lots of arguments. There's lots of strife and conflict. And I thought that was masterfully explored in this film. You can tell it came from lots of experience. But yeah, I mean, I think I saw some of the other Letterboxd reviews, and people were like, I mean, any movie that just like, you know, does a big ups to moms, really compliments their hard work is a win for everybody. Because I think that's true. Moms put in a lot of work, and so I think this was a great pro mom film. And then yeah, I mean, I guess the last thing to talk about is the ending. The ending is very nuanced, and I like it very much. It's not too nuanced, I'd say, but it's a very interesting ending. And it has a very interesting resolution. It, of course, like all endings in films, it ties the ends of everything that Chris has experienced: his friendships, his the relationship with his crush, the relationship with his mom. And what I really liked is, again, I'm not gonna try to spoil, but like the last moments of this movie, are very much touching on the relationship with his mom, and you sort of get the sense as soon as the movie ends, like, oh yeah, I mean, this was really more about a young boy trying to fix the relationship with his mom that he has, that's been sort of broken since his dad moved to Taiwan to work, and he mends that relationship to the best of his ability. And so I really, really like that resolution. You can kind of see, based on how things pan out in the ending, the priorities of the director. And at the very top is that mom's rule. I mean, that's the huge takeaway of this film. Mom's rule: always listen to your mom. Never, or try your best not to argue with them. And I love that theme so much. I mean, yeah, that's basically it. Another note that I wrote down is, so I saw this in an interview. Basically, Sean Wang, literally all the young actors except for Chris and his sister, everybody else are like they cast it off the street, like they've never acted before, which is incredible and like astounding to me, because these people come off so natural on the camera. They feel like they've acted before, but a lot of these young people, like Chris's friends, those actors have never acted before. So, I mean, all around, just amazing work from everybody, cast and crew. This was a really, really nice film, and this is a really nice mirror into adolescence. I'm going off to college, and it sort of makes me miss middle school, but at the same time, it doesn't, because middle school was kind of hell, and you can kind of see this in this film, and it's the love and hate relationship with your boyhood. But overall, I loved it very much. I'm going to give this movie 9 out of 10. Wonderful work, very poignant, and very emotional. All right, see ya.